Welcome. This is the Ralph Bivins Project, and we're here today in Houston, Texas. This is right when the Delta variant is reemerged and people are wondering what to do. There's more caution. There's things that are it's kind of in retreat for some companies that have been thinking about going back to the office and on a full-time basis. And we're lucky to have with us today Lauri Goodman Lampson. She's president and CEO of PDR, which is a Houston-based global interior architecture and consulting firm that works with large companies such as Exxon Mobil and developers, including Hines and Brookfield. And so, Lauri, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Happy to be here.
Good. Hey, we're glad to have you. And I know that from when you were talking with your corporate clients and others and people in the industry, in the workplace, what are you hearing fresh in terms of what's happening with their strategies and processes with the Delta variant coming along?
It seems we live in a very quickly evolving world still with this pandemic. And so about a month ago, I would say, many of our clients were working towards fall reentries in a big way. So September or October timelines. And we're really getting ready to incent people to start their migration back into the office, whether some days or most days or all days. And it has been a spectrum this whole time, what companies are expecting their people to do. And just in the last week, at least a dozen clients have, I think your word was retreated, because we followed the CDC guidelines and our county or municipal guidelines. And when they say, these are our new recommendations, companies are listening and responding. And so now some of those fall deadlines are slipping to later fall, but even some now to January. We have a few clients that have declared January of 22 before any sort of measurable return. And I can think of one that has already declared March. So as soon as Delta started rising, and they're based on the West Coast, so they're based in California. And so I think depending on where your headquarters is, your attitude about what you need to do where, and most enterprises want their response to be enterprise-wide. So not just localized, but it's what we're going to do as a company. And so it's a really complex and confusing time for everybody right now, particularly the employees. So people want to know what's going to happen to them. They want to know what their organization is going to declare and when. And right now, I know everybody knows that people are very, very concerned about losing the flexibility and control and choice that they've had, that this pandemic has offered as one of the upsides to the terrible situation that we've been living in for a year and a half almost now. And they just want some certainty. Go ahead.
They do. They got to think about, hey, what am I doing with my kids and their school? Yeah. All these plans we've got going on.
Right.
It's a tough deal. In terms of the number of companies or clients of yours that you have a feel for how many have made a decision or how many are kind of put it off and are just right now in the process of trying to decide?
Well, like I said, as early as a month ago, really early July, companies were really especially in Houston. So a lot of our clients are based in Houston, not all of them, but a large degree. And they really, for the most part, want people to come back to the office most of the time. We're hearing a lot of that. My advice to leaders as they're declaring this is to be super clear on their intentions and communicate those to their people so people understand why you're deciding whatever it is you're deciding. The worst possible path would be for the decision to appear to be arbitrary to your people. So if you've got clear intentions about why you're going to offer some degree of flexibility or not, just be clear with what it is you're trying to achieve, because what you want to do is establish a context for people to make their own assessment and their own decisions. So we have a lot of organizations that are polling their people right now and asking them, how many days would you like to be in the office? or what would compel you to be, or what would keep you from coming, right? So you're trying to understand. If you ask that question before establishing, our intention is to do X, and here's why, and here's the context in which the office will exist in the future, people only know what they left behind. And depending on the condition of what the office was in 2019, that's how they're going to decide. So you've got to establish this new context for them to say, hey, I would come every day if you're going to do that, if it's going to be that awesome. Or if you're not going to do anything, if you're not changing anything, why would I come? It offers nothing for me that I can't get at home.
Wow. But may I ask about, the company you lead, PDR? What are you guys doing about, I believe aren't you in Houston Center with your?
We are in Houston Center. We have a beautiful office. It has been open. Our office has been open almost since the beginning of the pandemic on a as needed basis. Because of the work that we do, a lot of our design teams need the materials that we have in our office, or they need access to the things. So it's been open, but with very low occupancy. And just recently, so before the Delta variant reared its ugly head, we were starting to increase our capacity. So we're still very, if you aren't vaccinated and you don't want to, or you don't want to tell our HR team that you are, it's a mask zone. If you are vaccinated and you would like to share that information with HR only, you're able to be in the office without a mask until Monday, when we've now changed our protocol, and all people moving around, vaccinated or not, moving around the office need to be masked just to protect everybody. If you're sitting at your seat, you can take the mask off. And I do believe the mask, it's a deterrent to wanting to be in the office, because it's another barrier to that human interaction that we're all craving, right? So we were on the path of increasing our occupancy and sort of loosening up the restrictions until both the CDC and Harris County raised the threat level and recommended that masks, when in high transmission areas, which an enclosed office space is considered a high transmission area. So it's very fluid, I would say, which makes it very hard for leaders to declare what should we do. And so my guidance for leaders, in addition to be clear on your intentions and set the context, is to just call it an experiment. Whatever you decide to do next, say, we're going to try it. We're going to try it. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to evaluate, assess, and iterate, because every organization needs something different. The work is different. What you're trying to achieve is different. Your population is different. Many of us, including PDR, we've hired people that don't live in Texas. So I can't compel them to come to the office. They don't even live anywhere near the office, right? So it's sort of, I was speaking to a client yesterday, and they said, we know two things. We don't know a lot of things, but we know two things. We know we are never going back to the way that we worked in 2019. We know we're not doing that. And we know that we will always have some degree of hybrid work collaborations, because we have hired people that do not live near our office, right? So we now have talent. So we know these two things, and those two things now should inform our go forward strategy.
A major change. I want to switch gears for a second.
Sure.
And talk about some of the projects you've worked on. I believe, of course, there's the One Shell Plaza, Mr. Gerald Hines' first big building, and which is now called, after its address, 910 Louisiana. Tell me a little bit about that's building has been, Shell has gone, Shell Oil has moved, but the building has been totally changed. Tell us a little bit about what you've done there and what you're getting ready to do.
So that building and the owner that we worked on behalf of now wanted to completely reposition the lobby and the common areas. So it's no secret. Many buildings are going through what I'll call a renaissance, trying to reinvent themselves and reposition themselves for this new world of work that we're in, where lobbies need to be something other than dead lobbies. We call it dead lobby syndrome, when it's this beautiful homage to some stone or beautiful material that we painted buildings with in the 80s. Now they need to be experiences that, from the minute you enter the building, you start to feel a sense of belonging, a community you're having an experience where it feels like there's energy. So one of the big problems of the condition we're in right now with nobody in the offices or choosing in and out of the offices is that we've really reduced the human energy. And so in public spaces and in office spaces, we're really trying to amp up the community spaces so that at least in some concentrated areas, you have that vibe of human energy, because that is what we thrive on. It's why we want to come back to the office in the first place. We don't want to come if it's empty. We want to come because there's other people there, and we want to feel that energy that we get. We feed off of that.
The restaurants around these downtown towers really want to see some energy,
Absolutely.
They're at a tough.
Right.
Now you've also been consulting with Brookfield about Allison.
Yes, very similar sort of goal, which is to take, and that's obviously a much bigger complex, but take that complex and really, in that complex, we really were instrumental in editing the traffic patterns, how people entered the building and experienced all the common spaces and the connective tissue between the high-rise buildings, to again increase engagement and amp up that experience and create what we call little micro experiences. Some of these buildings are so large and the lobbies are so large. There's lots of opportunity to create different kinds of moods and experiences.
Those great things there, like remove the sky bridge that was kind of there in the front of the complex. It was like, and then there was a big berm. You thought, hey, this is like a fortress mentality.
Right.
They don't want people, but James Burnett's office did the landscaping between the buildings.
Right.
Made a nice.
Really, I call it it's really opened its arms to the public now, instead of being, like you said, very, very closed off and protective. And it's still secure. So there is a way to be welcoming and secure. And we don't need to put up architectural or landscape barriers. It sort of is a, don't tread kind of vibe. And now I say it's really opened itself up, and it's much more welcoming, much more pleasant. And it's attracting visitors as well as accommodating and creating a better experience for the tenants of the property.
Well, I know I'd be remiss without asking about, I believe your firm, I could have this wrong, did the Exxon Mobil campus, the 3 million square feet, 20 buildings, and Spring Woods Village was now called City Place.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what you did for Exxon.
Okay. We were instrumental in helping Exxon Mobil decide how to organize their company, their 12 headquarters companies here in Houston, into a single location. So that was the original challenge. Was they were in 28 locations in the city of Houston, and the study was to see what would happen if we put everybody together in one place. So we started with that study, looking at potential site selections. And of course, when this started, it was a big secret. We were under NDA and not allowed to talk about what we were doing, because as you can imagine,
a piece about for Urban Land, the ULI magazine, about this whole situation and the code name and how they found the site.
Yes, absolutely.
I think, I hate to brag, I think the Realty News Report, my publication, was the first to say Exxon is about to make a move on
doing something.
385 acres.
I guarantee you didn't hear it from me.
I didn't. I promise you were not the secret source on that.
Right. But so it was a real estate study that turned into a business optimization opportunity. And so once the executives of the corporation realized that there was real business potential in bringing their companies together to encourage collaboration and what we coined as collisions between groups of people and individuals that weren't mapped to work explicitly together, to see what power that would create inside their organization. And it's a long story that I'll try to kind of hit the few high notes. But one of the things that they realized was just considering consolidating together caused them to rethink their company structure And they actually merged business units and reorganized themselves as an organization before they occupied the campus.
Wow.
So there was a big catalyst for that. And now after occupancy, in the years that they've been occupied, we've helped them what we call reorganize themselves in the campus to capitalize on these business synergies or these new business units that they've created to tackle innovation and the really wicked problems that energy has right now. And because of the way that we helped inform the design of that campus, so we were the program managers and the master planners and the workplace strategy and designers, and we worked with a team of design architects and record architects to bring it to life. But we informed the interior from what needs to happen here,
Yeah.
and it needs to work for 50 years, and so it needs to be incredibly flexible and fluid in how they are able to use it, so their business can evolve in it over time without the architecture getting in its way.
Yeah. We want to have you back and to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Lauri Goodman Lampson, PDR. One thing I want to remember that everybody should remember is one thing she said about advising leaderships as they talk about change of the workplace is call it an experiment. I love that. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to use that. When you're instituting change, call it an experiment and don't say this is going to be set in stone this way forever. But Lauri, thank you so much for your time, and it's great to have you here on Ralph Bivins project.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ralph. I look forward to coming back.
I hope so.